Okay. So we ready? Okay. All right. So good morning, everyone. I thought we could start the session with some meditation. And Geshe has been talking on the subject of refuge within the middle length Lam Rim. Okay. All right. So good morning, everyone. I thought we could start the session. I don't think she's gotten on. And Geshe has been talking on the subject of refuge within the.
Okay, so it's like it is switching to repeat.
So right now? All right. Okay. All right. So I think we're right to go now. Geshe has been teaching on the subject of refuge within the middle Lam Rim. So I thought to go into this, something on the subject today, and also to start with a meditation associated with refuge. So here, even if you haven't done meditation before, just to try to follow through, just to focus on, as I go through this meditation, just to try to connect with it in some way, to integrate it into your mind. So here, if we were to look into our future, the future of this life, how things would be, it's hard for us to know how things will unfold for us the rest of our life. There are many different factors, things that can occur within our life that can adversely affect our equilibrium. And these factors can be such things as the external environment, and they may be such things as the natural disasters, because although we have some sense of natural disasters, we can't be sure how things may manifest in the world. Just because they've been a particular way, it doesn't mean to say it's going to continue this way. And it's said in Buddhist teachings that in the time of degeneration, which is said to be now, then there is a manifestation of many natural disasters. Earthquakes, we can say some of them may be partly a result of human behavior, like bushfires and so on. But still, these things can occur. And also there is such things as the political instability in the world. And again, it can be governed by individuals, people hungry for power, empire building and so on. And as a result of that, there are consequences into the future. We don't know. Australia's lived with, for the last 50 years without a sense of real warfare nearby. But it's very uncertain. And then there are economic factors as well, turbulence in the world as a result of economic factors. And these can again be affected by natural disasters, famine and drought, so on like this. And also these affect things like social unrest. So very difficult to know what will unfold for us in the future. Then also there are the internal factors, our body and our mind, we can say. And how these will be, how balanced they will be into the future, it's hard to know. Often one description is they're talking about the body remaining in good health. It's like 4 snakes, the 4 elements, earth, water, fire, and air, being in balance. So into the future, we don't know how balanced our elements will be. We can take good care of our body, correct diet, and so on, meditation, all these things can help. But no guarantee that the elements will remain balanced. No guarantee that we will maintain good health into the future. And then there are mental factors as well that may influence how we are. Things, events occurring in our life affecting our mind. And if we have a sense of karma as well, karma ripens. And with this karma, then events occur which affect our mind. So if we look into the future, it's hard to know, but there are many different things that can manifest. And also our relationships as well. We may feel we have balanced relationships with others, our partner and our children, but we don't know how that's going to unfold into the future. Can be crisis arising. So many different things can manifest. And of course, when these things happen, then we can apply different methods to deal with this. But we're best placed if we can generate some type of internal refuge, some inner security within ourselves, some stability. And if we have this, no matter what circumstance occurs, whatever factors arise, that we can maintain that stability of mind to be able to deal with those circumstances. And in fact, if we've really developed it well, whatever adverse circumstance occurs in our life, whatever misfortune occurs, whatever tragedy, whatever crisis occurs, if we develop the inner resources, each one of those difficulties becomes an opportunity for us to become a better person, a wiser and more compassionate person, a person who's able to develop empathy for others who are experiencing those types of difficulties. But for us to do this, for this to flourish, we really have to integrate the Dharma into our life. We really have to integrate it, make it our personal experience, that it works, that we have the inner conviction that it works, so that when those difficulties arise, we're able to apply those principles based on our inner security. So the more that we're able to do this, then whatever occurs, we are best placed for our own benefit, for the benefit of our friends, for the benefit of our country, for the benefit of the world as a whole. Okay, so then regarding this subject of refuge that Geshe has been covering, when we talk about refuge, we talk about refuge in Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. It's that which establishes us as Buddhists. You know, if we define what a Buddhist is, it's someone who takes refuge in Buddhist, Dharma, Sangha, takes this as their ultimate refuge. And for it to really be something meaningful in life, it has to be really our own personal experience. And this is for us, many of us, who, most of us probably haven't been brought up with a vital religion in our life. Or if it has been, it's been something that's dropped away. But as a result of personal experiences in this life, very often difficulties and problems that we open up to the possibility, we look for some method that can help us. So for us, many of us who've been brought in that situation as Westerners who may never have had a religion, or if we had a religion, we didn't integrate it. When we've experienced these difficulties, then these become a wonderful opportunity for us to be able to experience that pain and to understand the need for a method to be able to deal with that difficulty. If we don't experience that level of pain or difficulty, then why would we search for a method? So we are placed in a very good position, particularly if we've had those difficulties. That makes us a person who is best placed to engage in spiritual practice. And if we have an understanding of that and we integrate the practice of Buddha Dharma Sangha into our life, and we make the experience of the teachings, we integrate it into the life as something which nurtures us and strengthens us, then it doesn't matter what anyone says about Buddhism. If they say Buddhism's a load of bullshit, if they burn our texts, if they destroy them, it's not a great problem for us because our refuge isn't in those things. The refuge is an internal experience as a result of our own personal experience and difficulties that we integrate the methods and we become a wiser, more compassionate person. So if you've got tragedies and problems in your life in the past, or you've got them in the present, or you're going to have them in the future, then you're a blessed person. Because, there are methods available. Here we say in Buddhism, we have the methods of Buddhism to be able to integrate these into the life so that we can become a better person. So when we talk about refuge in Buddhism, we talk about refuge in Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. And that refuge is, on one level, the external refuge. The external refuge is in Buddha, any being who's developed their mind to their fullest potential, developed wisdom and compassion to its fullest extent. Dharma means true cessations of suffering such they'll never arise, and the wisdom paths that lead to those cessations in the mind of a person who's directly realized the nature of phenomena. But Dharma in its general sense can just mean the teachings of Buddhism. And then that's the external Buddha Dharma. And the external Sangha are those who are accomplishing the path, those who've directly realized the nature of phenomena and are actively engaging in the path, thinking about inner transformation. So that's the external refuge. But the internal refuge is really important in Buddhism because it's really, when we become Buddhist, we become an inner being. It's about our own inner transformation. It's not like being a child who's clinging to God or the Guru, please save me, or Jesus, please save me. It's got to do with an inner transformation and a trust through personal experience that there's Buddha, Dharma, Sangha existing within us. We take refuge in our own future state of Buddhahood. We take refuge in our own Dharma, which is our own true cessations and true paths. We take refuge in our own Sangha, our capacity to be of guide to others. And so this internal refuge is what's most important, this one. And in some definitions of Buddhism, of refuge, it means entrusting oneself to one's inner potentials and the external factors that support this development of the internal potentials. So really, it is, when you become Buddhist, it is really an expression of a level of maturity, because it's saying we have a personal responsibility. It's not saying, please, Buddha, save me, like that. Although it may be appropriate to make heartfelt prayers, but it requires from our own side something to take place. our personal responsibility for our life, our personal responsibility. There's an important thing in Buddhism, personal responsibility. Okay, so the term refuge to me, the English term refuge, does not have a very positive connotation to me because it sounds like, a fox being chased by the hunters and seeking refuge in a burrow, or like a rabbit being chased by the foxes and seeking refuge in a burrow. It's sort of like a sense of escape, hiding out, seeking refuge, like that. To me, itself, in and of itself, when I hear that word, it doesn't have a very positive connotation to me. But the real experience of refuge is something, when you experience within yourself, it's something positive, because it means as you take refuge, you become a much more stable person, a much stronger person, a more compassionate, wise person. And then from that, then you're able to benefit others. If taking refuge leads you to become more paralyzed and more insecure, then it's a mistaken understanding. And clearly we can observe this for ourselves. Tune in to the Dalai Lama, tune into his life, read his life, see him, observe him, and you can sense here is a being who's secure in themselves, but is actively working for others in an extremely courageous and energized way. The same comes with Lama Zopa. Lama Zopa manifested a stroke, or had a stroke, whatever it was now, I think it must be close to 10 years ago now. And led to, partial paralysis, leg and then mouth and so on. And normally my image of someone who has a stroke is a person who is an object of, pity or compassion or whatever. And I wasn't around when he had the stroke, which is in Victoria. I was in France, the monastery. And I was interested when he came to visit Nalanda, how he would be. How has this stroke affected him? And when he arrived there, he got out of the car, and there's a lineup of people, as they do with these car, the scarf offering like that. And he stood in front of each person as he went there, and his focus was 100% on each person as he came to them, their well-being, their concern. He needed help to put the scarf over people because of his disability, but his focus was on them. And then later on, when he started to teach, as he sat on the front, and before he did this, got on the throne, he did this prostrations, and it was a real struggle there. But that was what he did, and then he needed help to get up on the throne. But he started to teach, and as he taught, nothing had changed to how he was before. His focus is totally on other people. So he's disabled, limited from physically, but the mind has not changed. His mind is concerned for others, not for himself. And he's doing it joyfully. So you can see here, when you can see this, observe this for yourself, that the refuge in the practice, and these lamas take refuge in Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, brings about a strength and a wish to benefit others. You see for yourself. So this has to be, for us, as far as I can see, if the methods don't work for us, if we don't become better beings, then I would question the value. Has Buddhism any value? I would question that, the value to me personally, if it can't help us to become better people, more strong, wiser, compassionate beings. So for me, my process of getting involved in Buddhism, there are many factors that are involved, but particularly was the year that I left school, and the falling apart of the life, which in the end turned out to be a great blessing, but it was also a revelation about the immaturity of my own mind and the need to find some method of sanity So what happened in that year that I left school? Because I think a combination of when you're young, you fantasize, even when you're 5 or 6 years of age, and it's not necessarily sexual, you can fantasize. It's not necessarily, I guess, the opposite sex, but in my case, it was the opposite sex. And you'd see that girl and girls in general being attracted to them, and the image in the mind, even at a young age, of finding a partner and being with them. And then when the Hollywood movies, watching more and more Hollywood movies, then the idea of finding the partner in the life became, that was going to be a reality, to find a right partner. Then during that year, after I left school, I made connection with this girl. She became my girlfriend. And I created in my mind this image of how things are going to be in the future. And you know, when you fall in love, it's engaged, all your senses are involved, aren't they? The visual, the tactile, the auditory, the whole thing. And I created a whole image about how our life was going to be into the future. And there was no reason for me to doubt it. But she had a different idea. Her idea was that she could survive perfectly without me. And then she realized she didn't want to be with me. She just dropped me like that. When that happened, I was devastated. I couldn't believe it happened. But what also happened, I think I was fortunate for whatever reason, is that what arose in my mind, I saw that I was like a baby. I had not grown up since I was in kindergarten. Emotionally, I hadn't grown up. I was like a child clinging to its mother. And I looked at that and I thought, how am I going to live my life out like this? Because the mind started to grasp for I'll find another girlfriend. But then I realized, how can you hold her? You nail her foot to the floor. That's it. And even that, you can't possess her. You can't control her mind. You can't even control your own mind, right? And yet here it is. I'm going to build my whole life on basing my life, clinging to another person. And it was like, for me, it was like trying to hold on to, like an ocean liner is about to leave port, right? It's a big ship and it's leaving port. I'm holding on to the rope, like this, trying to stop her from leaving. But I didn't act it out because I knew that even if she doesn't want to be with me as an adult, she's not going to be wanting to be with me as a child. So I didn't act it out, but it was there. And I didn't have resentment towards her because I realized all she's doing is acting out. She doesn't want to be with me. It's simple. But no one ever told me about this, right? And then when that happened, then my whole future, like, what's the purpose of a career? Because you can't, what's a career to have? So you have a relationship and you have a family, but you can't have a family if your relationship is based on insecurity like that. So that occurred. And then what happened, I started to listen to the words of the music on the songs on the radio. I was amazed. It was all about this, about broken heart and hoping for the next one and all the rest. All about expression of feeling. But there wasn't any wisdom looking for an explanation. Just you and me, babe, against the rest of the world. Well, what happens if babe leaves in the rest of the world against you as well? Or just another stupid one was just the two of us. Well, how about the rest of the world? Or more recent one is, if you leave me, can I come too? Right. So this is on the radio. And people listen to this and they're relating to it. It's their lives, right? But this was like the genie had got out of the bottle. I wanted to put her back in, but she wouldn't go back in. So this was something I had to work on. Not long after I got in a relationship with another girl. And because this was such a profound experience first time, I felt I had to pursue it further. And so she wanted that relationship to continue in the second case. But at a certain point, I realized I want this relationship to finish. She's half crazy. I've got to finish it. It was half crazy. And when I told her that, she was really upset and she wanted the relationship to keep going. But she decided Desperate circumstances require desperate measure. So I'm studying and I'm in this course, and one day they came in and they said to me, they called me out and they said, your girlfriend's taken an overdose. She's in a hospital, but she's okay, right? And when they told me that, I was really surprised how little compassion I had for her. I was just disgusted that she would think that I would stay with her under that sort of duress. That's how I interpreted it, she would do that. All I could think was, I don't want to see her again. I want her out of my life to do like this. I was shocked by that thing. But it was 12 months after I left school, and I'd learned something which was more important to me, I think, than anything I'd learned in tertiary education. If you cling to another person, it makes you suffer. And if you cling to another person, it makes them want to run away. The problem isn't in the relationship. That's not the problem. The problem has got to do with the mind, the insecure mind. And when that happened, then I understood also why it made sense that people would take refuge in God, because God's omnipotent, compassionate, all protective. But the problem was I couldn't believe in God. And then I connected with Hare Krishnas, these young guys in the street. And back then, you don't see them around now, but the Hare Krishnas used to be out in the street promoting vegetarianism, promoting their books. These young guys who I related to because I was alienated and they were alienated. But these ones, I'm not saying it's the case for all Hare Krishnas, but these young guys had connected with something which was meaningful, but there was no sense they had become part of something. They needed to be part of something, but there was no sense of gaining an understanding. That's what I got. And it was just like I felt, well, it's not much different to Hitler Youth in Germany in the 1930s. They made connection with something. There was a meaning, something bigger than themselves. But it didn't necessarily mean it was something positive. And then I made contact with people who had gurus, and they had photographs of their gurus everywhere, left, right, and center. And they took refuge in their guru. But there was no sense of themselves developing an inner strength. It was just that they hand their life over to the guru. So that started me off, and it took me another 4 or 5 years until many different things occurred. But it was all directed in this direction to find an understanding until I ended up at Kopan, which is the mother center of the center and other centers. And for 12 months intensively received teachings on Buddhism. And then it made so much sense. And I saw how it was, this importance of refuge, to find a valid refuge, a source of protection. And so how it can help us, right? Different ways that we can see, but it needs to be experiential for it to be meaningful. And this is important because to be a Buddhist, you need to be Buddhist, you have to have a stability of refuge. To become a monk or nun, you can't become a monk or nun unless you have it should be based on a firm foundation of refuge. To take vows, to take initiations, also, all based on refuge, the foundation. And so that refuge has to become experiential. Otherwise, it's just ideas. I'm Buddhist, so what, you know? I'm Buddhist, but I take drugs, right? So it's important that we have some experience of this. And how it is, how we can see how it works, is that when you become Buddhist, or in the process of becoming Buddhist, you integrate an understanding of the existence of the law of cause and effect, karma. You integrate this in the life. And it's said that of the 3 jewels, Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, the real refuge is Dharma. Dharma, we can say general teachings of Buddhism. An important part within Dharma is the understanding of karma, integrating that within one's life. That there is a natural law existing in relation to our behavior. So the more you integrate this understanding, you sense that karma does exist. It means that whatever your life experience is, whatever misfortune occurs, is a result of actions you've created in the past. We are responsible. the more that we understand that as a real questioning, where we really question, does karma exist? Does past life exist? Really meditating on that is an important thing, not just as an idea, but to get to the point that more than likely past lives exist, karma exists. It has a powerful effect on the mind because whatever misfortune you're experiencing is a result of actions you've created in the past. So if you find yourself in an unfortunate circumstance, relationship, or injustice occurring, these things manifesting in the life, why does this happen? This comes as a result of actions we have created. This is the source of protection to us because it protects us from developing the mind of resentment. External problems cause us a difficulty, but the real problems that we experience in life that we need to get protection from are our own negative states of mind. They are the real source of our pain. And the more you understand karma, the more you protect yourself from your mind of resentment. So if you have difficult parents, if you trace your difficulties back to your parents, and it may be the case, Buddhism is saying that we created the cause for the parents we have. We are personally responsible. But the understanding when we say personally responsible, we're not saying blame. It means also we're protected from blaming. We're protected from blaming other people, from blaming our parents because we created the cause, but we're also protected from blaming ourselves because we didn't do it deliberately. We didn't create this circumstance deliberately. Everyone is in the same boat. They create actions, they perform actions, and they experience results. They take rebirth, they have parents, and so on. And so we say we accept responsibility. We don't blame ourselves. We accept responsibility or take or assume responsibility. It's accepting truth. It's stopping the fight, the struggle that blames ourselves or blames others for our life situation. It allows us to settle down, to sit with the situation and to protect ourselves from our own agitation and upset. Also, the understanding of karma allows us to protect us from guilt, feelings of guilt. Because again, whatever situation we have is a result of actions we have created in the past. Negative actions have been created on the basis of ignorance, and it's the same for everyone else. So there's no basis for developing a sense of guilt. The Tibetans say that in their language, there really isn't a word for guilt. They don't have that concept of guilt that we have. And my sense of that, to what extent that's true, I don't know, but my sense of it is because they understand the situation of rebirth and karma. And so if you have certain tendencies, negative tendencies which make you do things which are destructive, habits we have, for the practitioner, that if they're thinking this way, then they don't have that sense of guilt. They see it's a natural byproduct of the situation. There's no need to add another layer of guilt, another layer. No need to condemn oneself. Also, a sense of understanding of karma allows us to develop kindness towards ourselves. Protects us from feeling that hardness against ourselves, and also protects us from developing hostility towards others. So the more that we really are able to integrate understanding karma into the life, this becomes a source of protection. It also becomes a source of protection because we establish a set of values based on understanding of what is right conduct and what is not right conduct, that we abandon negative actions of killing, stealing, lying, sexual misconduct, and so on. And as we integrate these into life, we protect ourselves from results of actions that we would have experienced had we not established that understanding, we become protected from negative karma that we would have performed without that understanding. So this integration of the life of karma is a source of protection. So when we look at that, when we talk about what does it mean, refuge, it means, amongst other things, adopting the understanding of karma, and then we become protected. Then other ways that we become protected or have refuge, that in Buddhism, you start to learn methods to counteract the negative actions motivated by the afflictions. So you work towards lessening the afflicted states of mind, to lessen attachment, lessen anger, lessen arrogance and jealousy. And the more that we lessen these states of mind, the more we become protected in ourselves from the disturbance of these states of mind, and also the consequences that come from those actions in terms of the karma. So this is personal responsibility, that we have to integrate the methods into the life to lessen the disturbing states of mind, and particularly the mind of attachment, because it's on the basis of attachment also that anger arises. It's often said that anger is attachment that doesn't get its own way. But attachment, we need to be clear about that, especially in our relationships, and to see how it's a source of problems for ourselves and in this world. Because this also, the more that we understand this and see how the problems in the world come from attachment, the more that we strengthen our refuge. We see that this is a solution for the world's problems. And so on an emotional level, it's important to understand the difference between attachment and love. And to see that in your relationships, the pain of closer relationships comes from attachment. It doesn't come from love. Attachment, clearly in Buddhism, is defined as a mental factor which exaggerates the positive qualities of an object and wishes to possess that object. It's like mental glue. And the state of mind of attachment agitates the mind and brings long-term unhappiness. It's a distorted, exaggerates the positive qualities of an object. Whereas love is the mind which wishes others to be happy. Attachment is conditional because you're attached to that person on the basis of what they give you back. If they don't give you what you want, then there's a tendency to abandon them, or they can easily turn into an enemy. So with attachment, that's what you often have in those very intense attachment relationships that you read about with the movie stars and so on, that they often turn out to be full of hatred because they were based on attachment. They were never based on love. So it's unstable and it can turn into hatred. Whereas love is based on understanding that other beings are equal to ourselves. They wish to have happiness, to be free from suffering. Just like us, they have a right to have happiness. And it doesn't matter what they do or how they are. If you understand they wish to have happiness, to be free from suffering, and their negative actions come from that, you can have a sense of forgiveness for them. And you see their own internal torment, and a sense of love abides regardless of what they do. And the possibility of generating that state of mind is seen in the lamas. They give that example. They are the embodiment of love. And it doesn't matter what people do to them or say to them, they never abandon that. Dalai Lama never abandons his love for the Chinese. The lamas whose students turn against them, the real lamas, real practitioners, never abandon love for those ones. Their mind is remaining stable. They recognize that this person wants to have happiness, to be free from suffering. So it's important for us to be able to discern those the difference between the two, and to understand also how it is that attachment works and causes us problems. Because if we understand that and work against it, we have the personal experience of understanding how attachment hurts and causes suffering. We have the personal experience of transforming our mind so that we are not under the control of attachment in our relationships. When that occurs, you have refuge in Buddha Dharma. So it becomes stable. You know within yourself it has worked. If it's not moving your heart mind in some way, your refuge won't remain stable. People come and go from Buddhism on the basis that they don't establish a refuge. They may hear teachings, but they don't apply it to their life. You have to apply it to your life. And so if you're experiencing being burnt on the basis of attachment, that's excellent because it can motivate you to do something about it. And you can do it in a practical way with our attachment. To understand that no matter that object that you want to possess, whether it be a person or object or whatever, its nature is impermanent. It changes from moment to moment. And any given moment, even within that moment, it's changing. The other person you can't possess. It's like trying to hold water coming from a tap. Their body is changing from moment to moment. Their mind is changing from moment to moment. What is there in that person that you can possess? Attachment tells you there is, but it's hallucination. It projects, it exaggerates, it makes the object look permanent, but it's an hallucination. And as a result of the hallucination of attachment, we suffer. But if we understand this and integrate through meditation to experience the other person as someone who's impermanent, that you can't possess, your mind becomes free. And then you know this is your refuge. This is your place of security. You can be in that relationship with that person, but you know that this relationship, I can't hold it forever. So you can let the person go, like a bird that comes and sits on the windows, in the window. You're there, wonderful, beautiful, but at a certain point it will fly away. So we can have this state of mind, through meditation practice. Then also you understand that the attachment mind not only lies to us by telling us it's permanent, but it also tells us that somehow the object is perfect or pure. We create this image about this person. I finally found the right person. She's finally found love. I read about that in the magazine when I went through the checkout at the supermarket. She's finally found love after 50 marriages, And that the mind creates the idea that this person somehow is my perfect partner, pure, perfect partner, and their body is perfect. But if their body is perfect, how can something imperfect come from something perfect? And each of our bodies, if you look at it, not only what it produces, but also by the time we get 100 years of age, it's disintegrating, it's falling apart. There's nothing. How can you say something perfect? So if the body that was looking so beautiful produces that, how could it ever be perfect anyway? But the appearance, the guys put these beautiful pictures of women up there like goddesses, and they believe that there's somehow something perfect or pure that they can possess. So we can apply this method to our life, right? So that we don't become traumatized. And this is important because domestic violence in this country, probably most countries, but like the previous Governor General, Quentin Bryce, said this is the greatest threat to human rights in the world today, is domestic violence. But domestic violence to a huge degree comes from mind of attachment. As they say, the women who are killed in Australia, each week, how many ever it is, 2 or whatever, the people who do the killing, it's usually guys, not always, but the qualities that those people do, the 3 things that come down to it says jealousy, insecurity, and a sense of entitlement. And it really comes down to this insecurity, clinging, like a child, like me. And I think probably I would have been a perpetrator of domestic violence too, if I hadn't found a method. It comes from a child's mind that's insecure. And they say women are most at risk when they threaten to leave their partner. So this is attachment. But this is important for us to know, both as a potential perpetrator of domestic violence. Do we want to go down that pathway? Because we can't, no matter what you want to hold that, you can't possess that other person. You can't hold them. And if you try, you're going to suffer one way or the other. It's a dead end. And also for us who may be, if we're a person who may be liable to experience domestic violence, we have a responsibility to develop security within ourselves. So when we look at our partner, the guy that we're getting involved with, look at them. How secure are they within themselves? How jealous are they? How much sense of entitlement do they have? Because if we don't look, and very often people don't look, why? Because they're fearful that that relationship won't go ahead. Why? Because they're insecure. If you enter into a relationship based on insecurity, you're setting yourself up for a lot of pain. So it's important for us to take responsibility, using Buddhist teachings to develop the security within ourselves. Right? And that gives us protection through the inner transformation. This is important. Then another way the teachings of Buddhism help take refuge in the Dharma is that it's said the Buddhist view is dependent arising, understanding that things arise in dependence upon other factors. So that if we look at our body is a dependent arising. It came within our mother's womb, and we couldn't have grown without the protection of our mother and the food that we received, and so on. And also the same thing goes for our clothing, our education. All the things that we have in this life are dependent arising. The more that we understand that, and that it comes from others, and that in the first beginning part of this life, we're dependent upon others, we're totally helpless. At the end of this life, most likely that'll happen again. And when we become sick, we depend on others. Then it makes sense that if that's the case, and all that we have really very much depends upon others, that even if others aren't necessarily intentionally kind to us, they are kind to us because of what they're providing. Then with that understanding of dependent arising, we see other people in a good light. It becomes the basis of seeing others as being kind, and therefore the wish to repay others' kindness. If we live with this attitude, a positive view towards others, this protects us from the attitude of resentment towards others. We are protected in that way. It protects us also from loneliness as well. If we sense that actually we're not isolated from others, we are constantly connected with others through the food that we eat, through the education, through communication, many different ways, then we don't experience loneliness. His Holiness said in the book, The Art of Happiness, written by American psychologist Howard Cutler. Howard Cutler asked him, "Are you ever lonely?" And he said, "No," very clearly. And Howard Cutler then asked him why. He said, well, that wasn't bragging. He said, because I think I feel a very strong connectedness with others. So I never feel lonely, no matter where he is. You could be in the mountains, but you still feel close to others. Remote, never seeing anyone, but you're very close to others. Whereas you could be in the middle of the city, in New York City, with people all around you, but be incredibly lonely, because in your mind, you're not connected with others. You don't sense this sense of dependent arising, that my life arises in dependence upon others. So the more that we do this, we become protected from loneliness and also depression. Depression, there may be chemical depression, but many depressions arise on the basis of the mind of the person who's obsessed with themselves. my problems, a mind that is not open to others' welfare. If you look in your own mind, if you feel the periods of time that you feel depressed, what's taking place in your mind at that time? Have you got loving kindness radiating out to others, or is it me and my problems? Almost essentially, but definitely it's on yourself. But the more that we sense our connectedness with others, dependent arising, the more we become protected from this state of mind of depression. And then we also we get protected from getting the bills from the psychiatrist and pharmacist and everything else, and all the side effects that come from the drugs, you know, through this recognition of our relationship with others. So again, these things, for it to work, it really has to be an experiential thing through meditation, sensing how the teachings work. And as that takes place, whether you say, I take refuge in Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, or whatever, whether I believe I'm Buddhist or not, the main thing is that the experience takes place, and you have that really experience that's working. Then also, the more that you know, that the emphasis is placed also to study, to really think about the teachings within Buddhism, and the possibility, how it was that these teachings that were established in the world 2,500 years ago by the Buddha, Prince Siddhartha, the being was Prince Siddhartha, became enlightened or manifested enlightenment, and then presented these teachings in the world, taught for something like 45 years. And the idea, the possibility that he'd sacrificed his life many times over, many times over, in order to attain the state of enlightenment and to bring these methods into the world. And to really think about the profundity of that wish and how he committed himself to attain that state, then presented the teachings into the world. And then from that time, 2,500 years ago, how beings have integrated the teachings into their life, and the continuity of those methods in an unbroken lineage for 2,500 years of highly realized beings committing themselves to the teachings, committing themselves to the benefit of others. The more that you're able to integrate that into the life, to take that as a real refuge, to really sense the real possibility of this becomes a source of protection to you. And that if you understand also, just as the Buddha manifested in the world out of compassion 2,500 years ago, we say in Tibetan Buddhism that Buddhas are constantly manifesting in the world according to the needs of individuals. And they may manifest in the form, it's said in degenerate times, in the form of gurus, in the form of lamas, bodhisattvas, beings who are intent on liberating others from suffering. The more that we develop that kind of growing sense, not blind, but really experiencing the teachings, they're working, the more you experience and it's working for you, you start to open your mind up to the possibility of things that you don't really understand, but you see possible or plausible. So then the teachings become alive. It becomes a richer, living tradition. That the possibility that there are beings manifesting all the time out of compassion into this world to benefit others. And it's dependent upon our state of mind, you know, for our mind to be open for us to experience this. We never know which being will manifest for us to give us personal guidance in dreams or through teachings or whatever else it is. You never know. It's often said you don't even know who your brother is, whether they may be a bodhisattva. And even though, as one American teacher said, well, you don't know my brother. I've known my brother, 40 years, and he hasn't said one wise thing. He says that, well, you don't know. That just might be a manifestation. He's doing it that way. So the more you keep the mind, with intelligence, right? But the possibility of this is helpful because It said the wrong view, which the wrong view is a view that is antagonistic and is hostile towards the idea of such things as karma, the existence of life after this one, and the idea of spiritual paths is hostile towards and is antagonistic. If you generate that state of mind blocks the ripening of positive karma. So it strikes me the very opposite occurs when you open your mind up more with intelligence, that things manifest in your life, the ripening of karma in the form, not just good things happening, but events occurring, teachers manifesting in your life, books appearing on your table, right? The mind opening up, right? Because of the ripening of karma, because of the change that takes place within our mind. And this is pretty critical, really, because otherwise there are people who are extremely intelligent, but they will never open up to spiritual practice because their intelligence often becomes a problem because they're so cynical. It's good to be skeptical, but being cynical is that where you've already rejected it is a problem. All right, so are there any questions? Yes.
Can you explain karma in dreams?
Or karma in dreams. No, I wouldn't really know. You mean as in why is it that a particular dream arises? No, I don't know, but I'm certainly there are people who definitely specialize in that, but I don't know about that. But for sure, when they talk about doing Vajrasattva purification practice, certain things, you've probably read about it, where you can have dreams that indicate purification taking place, such as being able to fly or wearing white clothes or drinking, pure food, that kind of thing, are a reflection of that. But I don't know, but I think even the negative things that arise, they come up very strongly, can be a blessing, because if they get you to look at things, if they come up very strongly in a thing, then something can be, it may be in another way a ripening of karma, positive karma, I don't know. But I don't know about that. No. Yes. No. Put 'em.
Example with the dream. My mom was not so well, and
Huh.
I knew that she deteriorating. And one day, this is on a Thursday morning, I had a dream. I always dream like that. Always encouraged me to dream. And every morning he would ask me, and when I was younger, what was your dream? So I used to think that everyone dreams, and I would tell him I'm dreaming. So this Thursday, I woke up in the morning and I told my husband, I had a funny dream that, mom was young and so beautiful, and I had not been able to go and see her because of COVID. And I said, I was in India, and mom came to fetch me, and I even said in my dream, Mom, you look so young. Like I wasn't young, but she was young. And like I said, Mom, how did you come? You're not driving. And she says, oh, like, stop wasting time. Let's go home. So I said, I have to get my suitcase from there. And I still remember the dream. And she said, oh, here, I have the suitcase. And I was surprised. And mom was not, usually mom can be sort of negative sometimes, but she was so positive and she was so happy. I couldn't believe in my dream that this is my mother. We took a taxi and we were going home, and usually I sneak whenever I'm coming from the airport to go and visit And then 2 days later, she actually went like a coma. She stopped talking in real life. So, and then only once she spoke to me, and that dream for me was like, I think she was ready to go. And I did tell Mom, I said, Mom, it's okay to let go. Exactly a week later, she passed away in her sleep. So sometimes I think that dream actually, I have that beautiful memory of her. I haven't seen her as she was cremated. I only saw her very last. But that dream is what I'm held on to, and it has actually kept me happy that she died happy. That, like I saw her positive and young and beautiful. So I think sometimes that dream is, I don't know if you can call it a karma or what. I'm happy with that dream.
No other questions? Yes.
So we have where, in terms of dependent arising, what about karma? So, like, if someone dies very suddenly, maybe young, that's their karma. But then this has a ripple effect on the family and so on. And so it seems interdependent. Is that correct?
Yeah. Well, that's right. If you have a child and the child dies, then sure, it's a karma.
The course of your life, like it might have been going this way, and then you have this death, and it can. I think it can change. How things might have flowed.
Oh, for sure.
Big time.
For sure, huge. Sure, tragedy. But yeah, it's said in Buddhism, this is a result. It's a karmic result. But of course, in that circumstance as well, it's not, in terms of the person who's lost a child, you wouldn't just say to him, oh, it's your karma, right? Because that wouldn't, that's not that's not the support that they'd want in that circumstance, is it? But from a point of view, Buddhist point of view, an explanation of those things, would be the explanation that comes from karma.
So it's the karma both of the person who's passed away and the family as
yeah,
well.
Yeah. Yeah. To lose the child is a karma that created. And for whatever reason, it would be understood like that. And I guess, I don't know, other religious traditions, it's like God works in mysterious ways. That's how they would interpret it. In Buddhism, we would say there's an action that's been created, and now there's a karmic result, losing the child. And, then there are methods also as well to try to deal with that loss, that tragedy. It's one of the worst things a person can experience, the loss of a child, So, of course, you need to have methods to be able to deal with that. No other questions? Oh. Oh, well, I think...
Well, I could give Mike.
I think we normally finish at 11:45 anyway. Yeah. Okay, so let's just dedicate now. Conclude and dedicate. So just as customary in the beginning, in a sense, to cultivate motivation for doing the practice, the right state of mind, then at the end also to dedicate in a positive way. So from here, reflecting on the subject of refuge, that from reflecting in this way, it may be the case that we can deepen the mind of refuge. And if we don't have a refuge, then may it be the case from this discussion today that some thoughts arise to establish an inner refuge so that into the future, whatever you do, however your life is, becomes more stable so that you be of greatest benefit to oneself and to others. Okay, so thank you.
Thank you, Venerable.